Well, good morning, everyone. How you doing? The sun's out. It's going to be 50 or so, right? So good to be here. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Evanston. I'm Kathy Underwood, the Director of Lifespan Faith Formation. Whether the Unitarian Church of Evanston is your spiritual home or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are so grateful you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community seeking truth in love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us is worthy of love and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection, of course, in the description below on the YouTube live stream, including the order of service credits, ways to support our mission, and to be added to our email newsletter list. And of course, a few announcements. After worship, we will have a 20-minute kinship time from around 11:15 to 11:35. Please greet one another and say hello to those you haven't seen or met before. And looking ahead, we are going to be introducing coffee. Better yet, in my opinion, tea and snacks, starting the 27th of this month, 2 more weeks. So we will be welcoming our new members, so please join us. And today, after the kinship at 11:35, our all ages faith formation hour will begin. In room 5 in the lower level, we are going to have Christine Peters leading Music Meets Art. Bring your inner kindergarten. Oh, I can't wait. And in room 3, our guest storyteller, Olivia Bear, will lead a workshop on creating belief poems and mantras. This will also be available through Zoom, and you can find the link in the newsletter. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning. Good to be with you today. Our opening reading is We Travel This Road Together by Tess Baumberger, yUU minister, chaplain, poet, and writer. I invite you to respond to this call to worship with the words, we travel this road together. From the busyness of every day, we gather once a week to remember who we are, to dream of who we might become. We travel this road together. As companions on this journey, we share the milestones we meet along the way. Individual moments of joy and sorrow become shared moments of comfort and celebration. We travel this road together. We share this journey across differences of belief and opinion because we value diversity and because we care for one another. We travel this road together. Today, as we take the next steps, let us notice our fellow travelers, the burdens that they carry, the songs that inspire their hearts. We travel this road together. As we gather in beloved community, let us open the holy heavens of our hearts. Let us share the sacred places of our souls, for we are pilgrims who share a common path. We travel this road together. Our introit this morning is performed by Bruce Kallick, his daughter Kathy, and son-in-law Paul, who was married to Sarah Kallick, Bruce's daughter. Sarah died 2 years ago in February, right before the pandemic. And Bruce sent me this recording last month in honor of her 2-year anniversary and in her loving memory, along with this message. Last autumn, the family gathered at the Botanic Garden for a small memorial celebration. We dedicated a bench to Sarah, which bears a small brass plate inscribed with the Ram Dass quote, "We're all just walking each other home," a phrase which served as a kind of mantra for Sarah, in which she found much comfort in her last year. Kathy, Paul, and I have now collaborated virtually to record David Maloney's lovely song of that title. Please enjoy this offering.
When you turn down that street all alone and you're running out of time, you start to feel it in your bones that it could be your time to die. We're all just walking each other home from the darkness to the light, from the sunset to the dawn. We're all just walking each other home. There'll be a day when we come to the river, when the ferryman beckons, come ride. Loved ones will gather together, and an ocean of love will arrive. We will meet at the top of the mountain, see the world from above. We will drink from the heavenly fountain and walk in the valley of love. There'll be a day when we come to the river, when the ferryman beckons, come ride. Loved ones will gather together, and an ocean of love will rise. We are walking each other home from the darkness to the light, from the sunset to the dawn. We're all just walking each other home from the sunset to the dawn. We're all just walking each other home.
That was beautiful. The Unitarian Church of Evanston resides on the traditional homelands of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. This land was recorded as being transferred from the local Potawatomi community to the United States government in 1829, and then was sold to white settlers. After decades of violent encroachment by the French, British, and then U.S. American settlers, the Potawatomi community had no choice but to sell before they were forcefully removed west of the Mississippi River. The Chicagoland area is now home to one of the largest and most diverse urban Native communities in the U.S. Our faith calls us to name these realities with honor and respect as one small effort toward finding greater accountability, deeper relationship, and mutuality with contemporary indigenous peoples, for the land which we use as sacred space, for the animals and plants that have been sustained by this land, and for our ancestors and descendants who are and will become part of the earth. As we light our chalice, symbol of our living tradition, please join in saying these words by yUU minister Reverend Suzelle Lynch, who recently retired from the yUU Church West in Brooklyn, Wisconsin. Each time we light the chalice, we renew our commitment to our Unitarian Universalist faith. With the spark of a match, we make it new again, as fresh and surprising as the first day we encountered the spiritual community and realized we were home. We light this chalice for renewal of our faith.
Please rise in body and or spirit and join in saying the words of our historic and living covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Before our hymn, we invite you to turn to one another and greet one another. Try to reach out to somebody who you don't know well or haven't met before and say hello. And for those of you online, please add your greetings to one another in the chat. You may be seated. Our hymn is number 1003 from our teal hymnal. Many of you don't have your hymnals with you, but it's a simple one. It's our Where Do We Come From? And this is a video created by Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, Director of Worship Arts Ministries at First Universalist Church in Minneapolis. Dr. Rideout offers the story of this hymn, which is based on the painting by Paul Gauguin, and then he presents a 5-part composition. You can feel free to join into any one of the parts, or snap along, or clap along, or just simply take it in. It's kind of magnificent.
When Paul Gauguin was a child, before he was the famous French artist, he was a Catholic student who was learning catechism. He had a particularly rebellious teacher who thought it wise to create his own fundamental questions to guide the decisions of life. Even though Paul did not stay a Catholic his whole life, the questions stayed with him. And the truth of them spoke to him right until his last years and his last day. Painted in Tahiti, the title of the French artist's work, Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? 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 What are we? What are we? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where do we come from? What are we? Where do we come from? What are we? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where come from? Where we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? 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 Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where are we going?
I welcome Tom Carlton up to give our stewardship update, and then Shirley Adams is going to offer us a testimonial.
Good morning. I'm Tom Carlton, the UC Treasurer, and I'm here to give you an update on our pledge drive. To date, we've received responses from 72% of the congregation and have gotten pledges of $520,697. That's 85% of our goal. Thank you so much to those of you that have returned your pledge forms. We're closing in on the goal, but every pledge counts. If you haven't turned in your form yet, please do so as soon as possible. Members of the support team will be available at the rear of the sanctuary to help after the service. They'll also be able to help online. May what you give bring you joy. Thank you.
Well, I want to tell you a story about why I prioritize pledging to this place every year. These events in the story did not happen here, but they could have happened here. In the 1970s, I was introduced to an Atlanta yUU congregation. I attended off and on for several years, actually about 10 years. But I never joined, I never pledged. I was not really a joiner, And it was a lovely building, and it was a little bit like this. It was very modern, only it was in the round. The programming like this was terrific. So I went when I was interested in what was going on. I did sort of lose touch because I started a relationship. We bought a new house, and all those things that absorb your attention and that fill up your Sunday mornings. I just kind of distanced from the church, lived at a distance from the church. But one sunny spring morning, perhaps a little bit like this one, I decided to attend services, got dressed, got in my car, drove to this parking lot of the church, but there were no cars there. I think there were 2 cars other than mine, but there were no people there. It was closed. I could see there was something on the door, like a big sign, and I couldn't read it. I went up to read it, thinking, I feel like I've had a gut punch here. I can feel it in my body. At that moment, I knew that it was important to me that when I chose to come in the door, that all the pieces were in place. The greeters were there, the smell of coffee, music, families running around, trying to find one another. A sermon prepared just for that day. I had not supported the church. I hadn't supported any of that with my time or my money, and it was no longer there for me. So I got out of the car, walked to read exactly what had happened. And as I got closer to the door, I saw the sign telling the dawdlers and slackers like me that that day the service was in a nearby park. So I took a big, deep breath. The church was still open. Well, I took action. Within 1 month, I had joined, I had pledged, and I was making coffee. So I've supported a yUU congregation every year since then. The possibility of losing the church was just so saddening, and it opened up such an empty spot for me that I was determined to be sure that it was always there for me and for others. I do, perhaps we all do, often go along thinking things will remain the same. We're sort of cruising through this wild, what does she say, Mary Oliver? This one wild and precious life that we have. And then we face a loss. And we remember, or we realize, how important a place, a group, a person is to our very being. So, in my 75 years, I have lost jobs, relationships, a home, but I did keep going. I'm not sure, this is so hard to say, I'm not sure that I could keep going without a congregation. Without a spiritual home, my life would be much harder. It would be emptier and a lot more stressful. Even though standing in front of you today is a little bit stressful. So I pledge early, and each year I try to up it just a little bit. So there are things, I believe there are things in life that deserve my attention and my money. UCE is one of those. I urge you to write out your pledge if you haven't done it. Join if you haven't done that. Turn in your pledge card today. We all have a part to play in keeping this community together. There will be times in our lives when we need this to be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Olivia, and I'm here to share a story with you today. The story I'm going to tell is about a book called How to Catch a Star, written and illustrated by Olive Jeffers. In this book, a young boy sits in his backyard in the grass and waits for a star to fall from the sky into his lap. It doesn't happen. So he goes out and he reaches his hand up into the sky. He's too short, so he gets on top of the tallest tree he can find, and still, he can't reach a star. He goes out to his father's boat and grabs a life belt, thinking he might lasso a star. At this point, he remembers he has a rocket ship, but he took it to the moon last week, so he doesn't have any more gas. Go figure. At this point, he walks out onto the pier and asks a seagull for help to fly up into the sky. The seagull ignores him. So, he's failed. He believes that he'll never catch himself a star. And in that moment, he looks into the water and sees a starfish floating. And he thinks, yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. And he reaches his hand down, but his arm is too short to grab it. But he doesn't fret. He goes to the shoreline and patiently waits for it to wash up. The story ends with him and his star friend holding hands walking along the beach. How to Catch a Star talks about a growth mindset, a way of viewing failures and setbacks. At my school right now, Northwestern, especially in the Design Institute, we talk a lot about having a growth mindset, believing that even if we struggle at first, our skills aren't set in stone. We can grow over time. Being with and around the designers is unlike anywhere else on campus because there's a kind of hope and positivity that floats around the space. There's neon-colored sticky notes pasted all over the walls in brainstorm bubbles. There's scribbles on sheets upon sheets of paper. There are these stations set up that make me feel like a child. They give us access to stations that have colored paper, markers, crayons, hot glue guns, scissors, foam core, Play-Doh, and cardboard. all tools for prototyping. It's like recess, but for engineers. They also offer classes to learn how to use the shop in the basement. And within a few sessions, you could start making furniture if you really wanted to. I once saw a boy walking out front of the design building hauling a huge, crooked, raw wooden bookshelf on his back with a huge grin on his face. The bookshelf was something that a carpenter might have called a failure, but I bet he has that bookshelf somewhere in his apartment today, and he's proud of it. I bet it works just fine. But that mindset, the one that helps the boy finally catch his star, the one that floats around the design building, is a hard place to get to. It's finals week. And me and my peers, a lot of us feel like we're stuck in a one-tracked mind, fixed mindset. There's a voice on our shoulders telling us, are you really gonna play with Play-Doh and cardboard right now? You have an essay and 2 exams tomorrow. You don't have time to waste. And besides, this isn't even a real prototype anyways. For this voice, just trying, just learning, and just growing isn't good enough. It wants you to succeed. And if you're not succeeding, then you're failing. This voice has been a part of my subconscious for so long that if I were the boy trying to catch a star, I don't think the story would have the same ending. I think I'd look down into the water and see a random fish floating and think, a starfish isn't even a real star anyways. I would be too caught up in the fact that I failed at what I set out to do, to see the possibilities that were lying all around me. But a designer would see that moment of finding the starfish and call it a workaround. A workaround is when you find a new solution to your problem, one that you weren't expecting. Workarounds are great, but sometimes it means taking all of your existing work and throwing it out the window. And you just gotta be okay with that, because the goal wasn't for you to have been proven right all along. The goal was for you to have found a solution. How to Catch a Star is a great story because its lessons are applicable to all of our lives. Except in real life, you can't just flip past all of the hard parts. You have to live through them. And the boy may have figured out how to silence that little voice, but I have not. I'm trying. And trying means knowing that it's okay to just learn, to not have all the answers. And learning means actively engaging with my beliefs and challenging them. It means believing something, trying, failing, learning, and then trying again. It means understanding that I may not have all the answers, but I can still show up for the exam. It means building a bookshelf, even if it's going to be crooked. It means understanding that my best work, my best ideas might not come out of just sticking down and grinding it out. And I can play with Play-Doh if I really want to. All of these things I know to be true, but I forget them sometimes when I'm shooting for the stars. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. I always love your stories and the messages that are embedded in those stories. You're a wise person. Each Sunday, we hold space for the joys and sorrows of those gathered here in this sacred place and online, honoring the struggles and the triumphs, the brokenness and the wholeness that is woven into the human experience. I realized I forgot your hymn. I'm sorry. Please sing it. Please sing it. Sometimes I just barrel on ahead. Go ahead, please. Thank you, Kylie. And welcome to Ken Smith, our guest pianist today. Those of you may know that Ken used to play for us every Sunday for many, many years, and it's wonderful to have you back filling in for Gregory. So, joys and sorrows. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share with us, with the community, you can write it in the book, which is found in the back. You can submit it through the Google form found on our website, or you can enter it into the chat, which I try to keep track of as I'm standing up here as well. So these are the joys and sorrows that have been shared today. Melanie Kitchener writes, this Thursday, March 17th, is the 10-year anniversary of my moving to Evanston. Yay! We're so glad you're here, Melanie. And Judy Lefevre wrote in the chat earlier that she welcomed her newest grandchild, Fitz, into the world last night. So that's exciting. Congratulations, Judy. And Roy Carlson is currently at Westminster Place following a health scare. He's doing all right. He's getting some stability, and he welcomes calls and cards and visits from friends. Elaine Siegel wrote, Reverend Sunenkoyo Kubosi, I'm not sure if I said that right, and I apologize, beloved teacher of American Buddhism in Zen Shin tradition, passed peacefully on March 7th. Both in Chicago and in his Bright Dawn Center of Oneness in Coarse Gold, California, Reverend Koyo taught many senseis to carry on the Dharma teachings. From Marlene MacArthur Frickman, she wrote, my sister, brother, and I suddenly lost our mom, Rosie MacArthur, early Friday morning due to a brain aneurysm. Thanking the universe that I was the last person to have a great conversation with her the hour before. It was fast. An hour later, she was gone. She was still living on her own and doing great at 88 years old. This was completely unexpected. Please keep my family in your thoughts. And I share, finally, the sorrow from Carla Williams and Cheryl Mounts that Carla's mom died last night. She'd been, she was 95, I believe, maybe older than that. And Carla had been caring for her around the clock. She led a very good life, and she was happy, and it's a hard loss. So we hold all of these tender offerings in our hearts and in our minds, and we send one another love and care in our struggles and joy in our celebrations. And you are invited now, if you have a joy or a sorrow or a concern on your heart that you would like to honor by lighting a candle, please come forward now to do so. Will you pray with me? This is a prayer, a version of the Lord's Prayer, as many Christians understand it, by Annette Marquis, who serves as LGBTQ and Multicultural Programs Director for the Unitarian Universalist Association. It's called Deliver Us to Evil. Spirit of life, which exists wherever there is love, blessed be all your names. Strengthen our will to create heaven on earth and help us embody a peace-filled world. Give us all our daily bread. Teach us to forgive ourselves for our failings and to forgive those who have failed us. Deliver us to evil and give us the courage to transform it with love. For love is the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. As we say in our covenant each Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, our values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, and to express gratitude through giving. Today's offering will be shared with the yUU Advocacy Network of Illinois, one of our most active partners. If you are joining us from home or in the building, you may text to give, mail in a check, or give from our website. And if you write a check, please indicate in the memo line what your check is for, whether it's the shared offering, your pledge, or capital campaign giving. If you're here in the building and have money for the collection plate, please raise your hand, and an usher will bring the collection bowl to you. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy.
Our reading is An Atheist's Prayers by Sally Fritchie, serving as the Associate Minister of Congregational Life at the yUU Church of Urbana-Champaign. Go Illini, sorry. Prayer isn't for atheists like me. At least that's what I used to think, until I prayed for Ernesto. During one of my very first shifts training as a hospital chaplain, a nurse called to say that a Catholic man was nearing the end of his life, and his family wanted someone to say some prayers. The small hospital room was crowded with Ernesto's family. I was prepared to hold their grief and anger, but I couldn't imagine how I was going to pray. Won't a prayer for me be empty? I worried. Won't the words come out meaningless? Won't they feel like a lie on my tongue? But a dozen pairs of teary eyes turned to me. What else could I do? I invited everyone to gather close. Together we prayed the Hail Mary, the Our Father, and prayed that whatever came next would come with peace and overwhelming love. A powerful connection formed when that family reached for me, the chaplain, and asked me to put their sadness and their hopes into words and to tell their God what they needed. Those prayers were far from empty. I had assumed that, from my own theology, would get between us and turn my prayers into lies. But ever since that night at Ernesto's deathbed, I have surprised myself by offering many sincere prayers for healing and for God's presence in the lives of those who desperately need to feel it. Every prayer, even an atheist's prayer, is an articulation of connection, a willingness to invest ourselves deeply in the lives and beliefs of our fellow human beings.
The words of our anthem were found carved into the wall of an underground cavern in Cologne, where Catholic resistors sheltered 9 Jewish fugitives from the Nazis during World War II. They remained hidden underground for at least 4 months, undetected. There's been much written and said about the words that were actually written on the wall, which have since been worn away and are difficult to verify. The words have been translated and interpreted many times over. However, recently the words of a soldier who discovered them in 1945 were found, offering a different interpretation. The words of the song we will hear are, I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. I believe in love, even when I can't feel it. I believe in God, even when God is silent. However, for the Jews who were sheltered underground, they held faith that the sun was still shining above ground, even while they were in the dark. They maintained faith in God, even though for them in the tomb, they could not hear God. And though they experienced the love and compassion of those who protected them, that also had to remain hidden, for the Catholics who hid them could not make their love and compassion known above ground. Here's another translation that might be closer to the original inscription. I believe in the sun, even in the darkness. I believe in God, even if God is silent. I believe in compassion, even when it must remain hidden. I believe.
I believe in the sun.
I apologize for the length of this service, but there was just no way of cutting anything out. I invite the children, kindergarten through 6th grade, to attend Head, Heart, and Hands in room 3 if you'd like, or you're always welcome to stay here as well. We have reflections from some of our participants. Kathy and I offered a class, What Do You Believe? Spelled yUU, because we're clever and funny that way. A class where, and this was offered to kids, to folks who are 12 and up, and together we explored some of our bedrock beliefs. What is the nature of divine? What happens after we die? What does it mean to pray? And is that something we can do if we don't know who or what we're praying to? We talked about religious words that we have trouble with to see if they could be reclaimed and redefined. We talked about making sense out of the unavoidable suffering and pain of life. And we talked about how our beliefs shape and animate us. As Unitarian Universalism, our tradition calls us to practice courage and curiosity in our personal discovery, and we encourage one another in the practice of spiritual growth. And we engage in meaningful conversations about what we believe. What do these things we do these things so that we can better understand and act with truth out of our beliefs, so that we can be awake to what it is we believe and live with intention from those beliefs. It takes courage to share our deepest beliefs, and so I want to thank Chris Yoo and Dan Solomon and Bob Mesle and Luke Montzka for sharing your personal belief statements with us this morning. May we be inspired and encouraged. Chris.
Good morning. I'm Chris Yoo, and I consider myself agnostic when it comes to the question of the existence of God. I don't know, and I'm not sure that I can know, but I'm really curious about how we know. I'm a psychologist, and one of my supervisors when I was in training used to say that the distance between our heads and our hearts is the longest road. This was in the context of knowing something, like that you're good enough for something, but it takes so long to feel it in your heart and to have it stay there. Recently, I've been thinking about how the path from the head to the heart is also long going in the other direction, from the heart to the head. So this is how it works for me regarding spiritual matters and the existence of God. I can have fleeting moments of experiencing the divine, a connection to something larger than myself, but the message takes a long time to travel from my head up to my head and to be heard. My brain wants to hold on to the notion that there isn't some supreme being that I need to communicate with in order to get to some better place after I die, but at times there are feelings that bubble up from my heart. Feelings of connectedness to others and the earth, and even feelings of connectedness to those that I've known that have died. So to take another idea from the realm of psychology, from dialectical behavioral therapy, is the concept of wise mind. Wise mind is when we use information from both our rational thought and the feeling we have in our hearts and other parts of our body together at the same time. So perhaps now, as I continue to explore ideas of God and what is beyond this life, I'd like to use more wise mind. Thank you.
I'm Dan Solomon, and I believe that nature, through natural law, is the source and cause of all that exists. In fact, I see nature as existence itself. Everything that exists is a part and expression of the greater wholeness or holiness of nature. I believe that humanity is one of the myriad of life forms that have evolved naturally on this planet, We are a social species and need to live in healthy societies to provide for our well-being. This is the source of morality, which is the promotion of human well-being. But as we are part of the greater whole of nature, human morality must allow for the well-being of other parts of nature, and in particular our cousins, other life forms. I accept the principles of Unitarian Universalism as expressing my own approach to life. I accept the sources of Unitarian Universalism as providing a foundation for my own development. I particularly draw on the Jewish and humanistic heritage with which I was raised, but I also draw inspiration from the many other traditions which contribute to Unitarian Universalism. I am dedicated to doing the best I can to promote the well-being of humanity, living beings, and all of natural existence.
Hi, I'm Bob Mesle. I was fortunate to be raised in a loving family. My mother was a wonderful model of kindness and compassion, a person who could listen thoughtfully but without judgment. My father, a minister, taught me that the way to do theology is to ask, is that what a truly loving God would be like? Is that what a genuinely loving God would be doing in the world? And another mentor taught me to ask, well, is it true? I was raised to experience God's love in my life and to think of God as my friend. When at age 20, I decided that my divine friend was not actually there, we parted as good friends because a truly loving God would not be all hung up worrying about whether I thought God existed. Rather, God would want me to be honest with myself, to seek the truth in love, and to help other people. My father's advice applied beyond God to community. What would a truly loving community look like, and what would a truly loving community be doing in the world? That drew me to UCE. This is what a community honestly struggling to be loving would look like. This is what a community would look like if it was really working to seek truth, to make the world more whole, and to help each other. And such a community would know our failings as well as our strengths. Along with Dan Solomon and Jerry Stone, I'm a religious naturalist. I think that nature is what there is, but I appreciate the value in good positive values in religious traditions. As a process relational philosophy, I think that nature is amazingly rich and complex. It is not a vast machine. The cosmos is an ocean of feeling. And you can see this connects me to the yUU principles. I believe that my soul or mind is the cumulative flow of my relational experience arising from my embodied life in this natural world. And I believe that this flow will stop when my body fails, like a broken light bulb. I think what happens to all animals when they die is what will happen to me. Of course, the world's amazing and I could easily be wrong. Although I do not use the word God to describe my own worldview, I do think that process relational theologians like John Cobb and Marjorie Suchocki have offered us an amazingly wonderful vision of a truly loving God that is coherent with what we know about science, evolution, history, religious diversity, and the struggling of suffering. And I'm really a passionate advocate for that view for people who are seeking such a vision. It is what I could call God if I were convinced it were true. But I remain unconvinced, and so my life has this odd duality. Finally, I believe that spiritual beauty is and ought to be as diverse as artistic beauty. No one imagines that music is the only form of artistic beauty, or that sunsets are the only form of visual beauty. Isn't it wonderful that spiritual beauty comes in so many forms in this world? These are all reasons why Unitarian Universalism and UCE are natural fits for me.
I'm Luke Montzka. I believe no one's life starts with an innately defined purpose. A purpose is something a person has to discover on their own. Despite our different life goals, though, we must treat everyone with kindness and respect. Almost every action we take is connected to another person's life. I believe that we have a common responsibility to our home. This earth is the only place we currently live, and we are called to protect it. We must each do our best to keep the planet safe for future generations. I don't have a particular physical space that makes me feel closer to the universe and its big questions. More than any church or cathedral, acts of empathy, peace, and respect are the most sacred to me. When I want to feel closer to the universe, I just go within my mind and consider my place in it. I don't really believe in a benevolent God in the traditional sense, especially when there is still so much hate and suffering in the world. I do believe that we are all responsible for our own actions and that we as humans can make the world a better place through cooperation, creativity, hard work, and love, while continuously expanding our factual and spiritual knowledge. But more than anything, we are responsible for our own behavior and growth as humans.
Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your statements of belief. As we extinguish our chalice, I invite you to join in saying these words. Though the flame is extinguished, we carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment until we are together again. Thank you. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our hymn, number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. Surprised to see Morgan there, coming up from the past. Very fun. May each of us know the encouragement and companionship of the beloved community in our journeys to live with truth, according to our deepest beliefs and highest values. May we together, through nurtured and emboldened spirits, help to heal the world and make it more whole. Please enjoy kinship time, and we'll extend it a little longer, and then our faith formation hour will start after that. So, thank you.